For coming this evening. My name is Dr. Natasha Ridge and I'm a research fellow here at the Dubai School of Government. Most of my work is specialised in secondary schooling in the Emirates, and I'm really delighted that so many of you could come tonight for a session on teachers and teaching, which is really, in my opinion, probably the most important factor in any education discussion. And I think we've put an article in front of you today from The Atlantic magazine, which came out this month, and it talks about what makes a great teacher. So there's lots of attributes there, but the difficulties we all have, as we know, as education professionals, is defining what are those attributes that make a great teacher, and then how do we cultivate those once we know what they are. So that's one of the big challenges facing all of us, especially our four speakers tonight, who are really privileged to have. And I'd just like to say that I hope we'll see you again at the end of the year. We'll have another 3 sessions, but I hope you'll enjoy tonight and take away some really good insights into teachers and teaching and the training of teachers. Our first speaker tonight is Dr. Ian Haslam, who's the Vice-Chancellor and CEO of Emirates College for Advanced Education. Our second speaker is Ms. Jane Truscott, who is the Academic Program Coordinator for the Madaris Al-Ghad at the Ministry of Education. Our third speaker is Dr. Peggy Blackwell, who's the Dean of the College of Education at Zayed University. And finally, we have Ms. Jules Stewart, from the Principal Curriculum Advisor in Early Years from the Council for British Teachers and working in Abu Dhabi. Each speaker will speak for approximately 5 to 7 minutes. After all the speakers have finished, I'll open the questions to the audience. So thank you very much, and we'll turn over to Dr. Haslam.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you here. You know we're missing Chelsea versus Arsenal on the English Premier League, don't you? But it's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm thankful for being invited. I'm not sure many of you know about our college. In the Abu Dhabi Emirate in around 2004-05, the Emirates National Centre for Education Development was offering professional development courses to teachers throughout the Emirate. In 2007, by decree and law, the college was formed, and we are designed to serve, of course, new teachers entering the profession, professional development of existing teachers, principals training. We can offer certificates, undergraduate degrees, postgraduate degrees. We currently have 600 registered students, 200 on professional development programs with us, and 400 in initial teacher training. Our postgraduate diploma program has graduated 152 students who will hopefully be having a ceremony sooner than later. We have about 100 staff, and of course, from my point of view, I see us as the jewel in the crown of the Abu Dhabi Education Council's strategic reforms in the Emirate. So, when I'm confronted with the question of what are the challenges that teacher education is facing today, of course, I'm swamped with ideas and information, and it's hard to determine, where to start. But clearly, for me, and back to my sport analogy again, if you will, I'd like to have a level playing field. A clear set of rules and regulations wrapped up in a national policy would be very helpful to, I think, ourselves as a departure point. And certainly the Abu Dhabi Education Council is moving in that direction. It is extraordinarily busy with its data collection as to the conditions that exist in schools and the needs, of course, of the schooling system in the Emirates. And as a result of that, policy will be formed and shaped, which will give us some ideas more clearly on specifically what we ought to be doing with our teacher preparation program. Our program is modeled on the Singapore's National Institute of Education program, which is, as you know, for Singapore, an exemplary teacher education program. And of course, the policy framework in Singapore is different from where we are here. And so we have had some creative space between where Singapore is and where we are as far as how to interpret needs. So a national policy would really help. I'm also just want to stretch that a little bit further, and one of the challenges would be to look at, in my view anyway, the policy framework for services that surround children and childhood. That is to say, working education as a policy agenda into social services, family services, into Ministry of Youth and Culture services, and into safety and security services for children. So we have a holistic agenda rather than just an isolated agenda. The second point I'd like to make relative to challenges is scalability. In the Abu Dhabi Emirate alone, we have 11,000 teachers in the public system, some 350-ish schools thereabouts. That means 350 principals at least, probably a principal or two, a vice principal or two in each school to help out as well. And of course, we need a 10-year plan to make this happen. We need time for us to be able to, I think, roll out, whilst at the same time trying to raise quality of teaching and school leadership in the Emirates. So the size of the problem is really quite monstrous. It needs multiple partners, it needs multiple players, and it needs, of course, a great deal of care and thought as to its rollout. The third item, and I think this is absolutely critical from the point of view of quality teachers, is that any teacher education provider, any delivery system at all, is symbiotic with the school system that it serves. And by that I mean, take for example our Bachelor of Education. We recruit from the school system. If the school system is any way, shape or form fundamentally broken, the students that we get are not as good as the ones that, that we should have to improve the system. The second piece to that problem is our students practice under mentors in a school system that may or may not be good, with teachers who may or may not be able to mentor our students. This is that integral relationship that we have with the school system. We have to be very careful with our induction programs and our field-based practices that we find really good mentors for our students and really good schools, well-resourced schools that would be helpful to them. Okay, recruitment. My campus has 6 men. We need more. These 6 men are famous. They've been on the newspaper. And they're working very hard to reach the required standards to be exemplary role models in the elementary school. And they're wonderful people, and I'm sure they'll be an honor to us when they graduate. We have probably, I would say, 320 women in the program, and of course in the PGDE program though, which is an in-service comeback program, the demographics are split 50-50. So we could have around about 46 women and something like 50% of the men. So recruitment of teachers is very important. We've raised our standards to a CEPA score in English of 175, roughly equivalent to a 5 IELTS. We don't expect to see too many students out of the public system. But we can recruit in the private system, and we can recruit expats, and we've had some really good responses this year as we've been doing that. So we're looking forward, having raised the bar, if you will, for entry for some high-quality students for next year. I think we need multiple pathways to teacher certification. That's a challenge to craft as well. The college isn't the only place that teachers have to be trained. We've been talking to some PPP providers about a school-centered initial teacher training initiative where teachers will not have to be backfilled to come to college and to study with us, which is helpful. We also need, the next point would be accountability in the schools. We need, I don't know how best to put this diplomatically, we need an inspectorate that will go to schools that has teeth and call a spade, if you'll pardon the pun. 5 minutes to go, or 5 minutes is it? Right. But we do need someone to stand up and be accountable for poor quality teaching in our schools. And then for us to be able to help our teachers to improve their teaching with a performance management system that counsels them in terms of what they might need by way of professional development to raise the level of their teaching in the classroom. Accessibility. We've put an awful lot into our technology development this year. We have a Blackboard program that can provide professional development work off our campus and across the Emirate. But the schools that we try to reach out to don't have any technology that can handle it. So we need a lot of help in that area if we're going to make it more accessible for everybody. A couple more things. Our college was designed for professional development. As I say, 11,000 teachers. English IELTS levels are quite low. We are an English medium speaking college. We have a lot of work to do in raising English levels. We have an awful lot of teachers who don't have initial teacher training at all, who are currently working in the system. And we've been servicing them, as I say, with our PGDE program for the last year and a half. And I'm talking 2,000 plus, way more than the college could handle in terms of the scale of things. We've got principals who've never taught in classrooms. We've got principals without teacher certificates, principals who struggle to find the link between the learning environment and the curriculum and the challenges that teachers have. And we need to help them. And lastly, there is a dearth of research in teaching and teacher education in Abu Dhabi, at least, and probably across the Emirate. And we have a lot more work to do in that area. Now, I could go on, but I'm sensing I've probably done my 6.5 minutes. Yeah? Okay.
One more.
Well, somebody said to me, if you said to me what would we be looking for in terms of quality, I would like to say that creative collaborations across ministries to form an integrated policy agenda would really help. Services that surround the child as they're growing up are extraordinarily important to their academic success. If families are not supporting children at home whilst they do their homework and are tutoring them in the subjects that they need, then they're not going to progress as fast as if they would. If their home life is unsafe and insecure, then when they come to school they bring baggage with them and they can't learn properly. And if these various agencies, if they don't integrate their policy on childhood, then I think we'll be shortchanging the students. I think meaningful partnerships between the state, meaning ADEC in this case, the schools and the teacher providers is very, very important. We need to know what the rules are, as I said before. I think exemplary induction programs, if we can find them, that's field practice for our students, and that 1 year following the graduation, a year of professional socialization into the business of teaching in schools locally is very, very important and cannot be left to chance. So it has to be structured as part of an ongoing program. I also think, tying to the quality, evidence-based practice is essential. The performance of children in the classroom is tied to curriculum resources and teaching performance. If the children are underperforming, it could be because the teachers are not prepped to teach them properly. And if the teachers are underperforming, they need help from the heads of departments and the vice principals and the principals to upgrade their skills. So that in turn, it's the students that will improve their abilities in the classroom. Okay, I'm going to finish there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Haslam. Ms. Truscott?
Good afternoon. My name is Jane Truscott. I've been here in the Emirates for 3 years now with Madaris Al Gad, which some of you may have heard of. It's a reform programme based with the Ministry of Education, and we are looking at K through 12 education reform. To date, we are working with 44 schools, a little bit like the PPP projects. We're across all of the Emirates, so we have access to the same teachers, the same students, the same resources, the same money as all the Ministry of Education schools. And so we are trying to look at how we can enhance and improve the education in those schools with the same resources. We have 16 secondary schools, and this year we are working in cooperation with the Ministry of Education. So the curriculum that we have in the Madaris Al Gad for our English programme is exactly the same English curriculum that is across all of the Ministry of Education schools. So it's very useful for us to see the differences between what's going on in our schools and what's going on in all the other ministry schools. We have 13 middle schools looking at grades 6 through 9 English, and then 18 elementary schools. We're currently in grades 1 through 3. We have our own new Arabic curriculum, English curriculum, and we teach science and maths in English. Our goals that were set out 3 years ago and really are staying today is to create a world-class educational system consisting of effective schools. And that's not just for our 44 schools. The idea is that we will be able to roll these schools out across the whole of the Emirates. We want to increase the capacity of the UAE educators to create and sustain a learner-centred environment. Our teachers are our best resource, and so we are trying to develop from within the schools our teacher resource, because they don't always come to us with the prerequisite requirements for teaching, for effective teaching in the classroom. Many of them don't have an education background, they don't have an education degree, they haven't had the in-service training that those of us in the West might have had or be used to or expect. And obviously, one of our biggest goals was that we were to increase the language proficiency of our grade 12 graduates. And consistently over the last 3 years, we've managed to do that. So we want to be able to look at the reasons why and roll those out to the other Emirates and to the other schools. Classroom instruction and the challenges. Well, I think our biggest challenge is the teaching methodology that's going on in our classrooms. It's about the curriculum, it's about the teachers and their methodology, and it's about the professional development that they get to support the changes that they'd like to see or that the government would like to see. We're trying to move the national teachers from a very traditional classroom or a teacher-centred learning background, where the students actually sit in rows facing forwards and they're expected to learn all by themselves, many of them rote learning. The teachers, the one that's responsible for the learning, they're on the go the whole time, every 60 minutes. Every single minute of that 60 minutes, they're doing the work. The students aren't. He chooses the content according to the given textbook, the resources, the method, the pace. So if the teacher's tired, the students are tired. Or the teacher doesn't fill up all the time, the students sit there not doing anything. The students are limited by the creativity of the teacher. It's very top-down, where the teacher is seen as the expert. And we all know that we're all experts. It's a team effort. The child is a passive participant, and if we're passive in something, we don't learn anything. We need to be interactive and part of it. And most of the testing is standardised, and it's usually added on to the end of the teaching programme. So we want to take our teachers from this point to our student-centred learning classroom, our modern classroom, where in our programme, Madaris Al-Gad, we get our students to not only work individually, but also in small groups, pair work, small groups of 4 or 5 or 6, according to the task. They don't all just sit in rows for every single task. If you're discussing something, then you need to be sitting together in a group so you can discuss it. We want our students, we encourage our students to be active and enthusiastic. We want problem solving going on, we want critical thinking, we want higher order thinking. And in order for that to go on, you have to present those tasks. So we're training our teachers to present that type of task. We want to encourage collaborative learning. It's much easier to learn when you're learning with somebody else than when you're learning by yourself. We want students to take responsibility for their learning. We all learn in different ways, at different times, at our own pace. And so we want to encourage students within a group, a supportive group, to do all of that, to learn at their own pace, to reflect on what they're learning about so they can apply it elsewhere, so that it's that piece of knowledge or that information or that skill isn't lost as soon as they run out of the door at the end of the period. We want activities and resources that appeal to all learning styles, And that means we need books, we need non-books, we need technology, we need a whole range of different resources, not just the one textbook. And to go with that, we need to know whether students have actually learnt what they are going to have been taught or that they're working with. So we want authentic assessment, which is part of the learning process. So this provides our teachers with lots of challenges. As I said, teaching to standards. Madaris Al-Gad, we teach to standards. We don't teach to a textbook. We don't start at page 1 of the textbook and go through to the end. We go in and out of the textbook according to the standards, according to the learning objective for that lesson. But that means that the teacher's got to look at new curriculum resources. They've got to look at integrating those resources. This year, the Ministry brought out a new curriculum assessment framework for English, and they've had to take all of that on board and learn how to integrate that with the learning requirements, the learning outcomes, making sure that it's integrated and not tagged on to the end. We're expecting them to learn all about new teaching methodologies and to integrate technology into the classroom. And we want them to be collaborative. Yet they've learnt in a particular way where they weren't all alone, sitting in rows. And we want our teachers to be facilitators and guides and not to be the expert. We want the students themselves to be experts amongst themselves. So the challenges for them are greater autonomy, but with that comes more responsibility because we're putting higher expectations on them, so therefore we need more training. So a lot of Madaris Al-Gad and what we do is about training teachers, and we train from within. So we have experts or not experts, people that work alongside them in the classroom. We try to work in a collaborative, collegial way with our teachers. We have well-planned and appropriate lessons, supportive developmental assessment and appraisal program, one that's not going to be shaming them or putting sort of ideas into their head that they're no good at something. We want them to reflect on what they do well and improve on it and look at how they can make up the differences. In order to do that, we need ongoing mentoring and professional development that's linked to teaching and learning and outcomes and authentic assessment practices. And I could go on talking forever and ever and ever about how we can do that in a very practical way. But it's making changes in the classroom. But it is a challenge for these teachers who are coming from here and we want them to be over here. So we have to put in the support mechanisms that enable them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Dr. Blackwell.
What we just heard from Jane, I could just stand up here and say, well, let's hear it all again. Because what she's talking about is something that we at Zayed University believe in very deeply. We want a learning-centered teacher. We want the teachers to understand and know about how children develop, how they learn, what their cultural backgrounds are, and we want them to understand special needs. If they know and can use this material, then they will be able to support learning that will prepare our students for their lives in a world that will be much more complex than what we know now. Effective teachers every day in every classroom confront very complex decisions as they're working with all the children that they have, trying to address the needs of each individual child. They rely on different